Hey there, welcome back to Farmcraft. I'm John, and work on the boom lift continues. So far, you've seen me tear the boom lift apart, which was quite a process. Then you saw me set it on fire, put the fire out, fix the fire damage, and today we're going to really get everything prepped and ready to start putting it back together. That includes rebuilding a 26-foot long hydraulic cylinder. Not something I've ever done before. This is the biggest cylinder I've ever seen, probably the biggest cylinder I'll ever rebuild. So I don't know how that's going to go. We'll see what we can come up with. I also need to look at the chains, inspect them, clean them, relubricate them, clean the booms, basically prep everything and get it ready to start putting it back together. So let's get to work. So here's all our parts. I'm getting new snap rings, eccentric bushing, chain attach block. This is the extend adjuster here. Bolts and washers, those are the mid-boom pins and cover plates. Those are control box bolts. This is the retract adjuster. And then those are the bolts that I had to cut for the power track. Some of this obviously is going to be replaced, like that. Some of it is going to be cleaned up and treated with evaporust. So let's get this stuff looking a little better. This plate just helps attach the power track to the fly boom. It's not a safety critical component, otherwise I'd replace it, but it'll be fine. This boom rebuild is hard work. I'm about to start the cylinder rebuild, which ends up taking me a full day, and man, it was a long day. Sometimes after a long day I like to treat myself, usually just a beer, maybe a dinner out, but sometimes I really want something. Which brings me to the sponsor of today's video, Bespoke Post. Have you guys seen this? This isn't just your typical knick-knack store. They have a really cool mix of interesting things, from tools to home goods, outdoor gear, hiking, some awesome knives, and a lot of other stuff. Pretty much something for everybody. You can even subscribe to them and you get a monthly box for a pretty darn reasonable price. But you can decline a box anytime so you don't end up with a bunch of stuff that you don't want. And it's also a great place to shop for other people, especially those people that are hard to find gifts for. These are a few things that they thought I might like, so let's see what they sent me. Oh cool, so this is a lightweight camp chair. My wife and I and my family like to go camping, and this will come in really handy. So this is a Damascus knife with a nice leather sheath. And man, I mean, this looks like a $300 knife. And let's see the last thing. Yeah, so this is going to be a good addition to my workshop. These are some really nice sharpening stones. I will be using these a lot. So check out this knife. Beautiful Damascus pattern. I mean, that is a nice knife. Now, I usually carry a folding knife, but this is going to make me want to carry a knife and sheath. That's awesome. So here's this chair, and man, it's really light. A little bit of setup, but not bad. And it is very comfortable. This is going to be nice. This might impact my productivity. So to get 20% off your first box of awesome, click the link in the description and enter FarmCraft20 at checkout, or go to bespokepost.com/farmcraft20. And let's get back to work. I need to get these chains cleaned up, inspect them, and if they can be reused, relubricate them. My old power washer wouldn't start. It turns out it had intermittent spark. It was a little too small anyway, so I just went and bought another one. New tool. Let's see if this hazard fraught thing will start. Second pull. Kind of. I've got a lovely helper today. Yeah, she's still alive. These chains are actually pretty heavy and kind of hard to handle, especially the larger extend chains. I had to wrap them up so that I could fit them in a bucket. This one still had a lot of greasy stuff stuck to it, so I put it back in the degreaser. Getting the big chains to fit into the bottom of a bucket took a little doing, but I eventually got it. And then they all got evaporust. And when I took them out the next day, there wasn't a spot of rust on them. These chains, they come a certain length, and as you use them, they stretch. You're allowed 3% of the length of the chain in stretch. The way you figure it is a little goofy. What they want you to do is measure 14 inches of chain and see how many links you have compared to what you should have. Over 14 inches, you're allowed 0.42 inches of stretch, almost half an inch. With a 3/4 pitch chain, meaning it's 3/4 of an inch, that's a little more than half a link that I'm allowed to stretch. If these links were exactly 3/4 of an inch, you do the math, to get 14 inches, you would need 18.6 links. Have I lost you yet? Yeah, it took me a little while, but anyway, here's my 14 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 12, 15, 18. There's 18 and a half. It's like 18.7. So the chain has not stretched anywhere near too much. And I've got this spec sheet here that shows you things like... Yeah. I'm not going to bore you with all that. I checked the chains out. They are almost just like new. They are in really good shape. Chains are good. Now to lubricate the chains. I lowered them into a bucket and submerged them in 30-weight motor oil. That is what JLG recommends, and the two technicians that have been helping me both said that's still the standard way to do this. I know there's a lot of chain lube products out there that would probably work well, maybe better, but I'm going with what JLG recommends on this one. This just isn't the kind of machine I want to be experimenting with. So after giving them a good dunking, I let them drip over the bucket for a couple hours, and this worked pretty well. I was expecting this to be pretty messy, but it turns out I didn't spill much oil at all. I couldn't quite get this one submerged and I didn't have any more oil. Okay, how do you rebuild a cylinder that's 26 feet long? I have no idea, but I'm going to figure something out. So just sitting here, the cylinder was leaking enough that I had to put a catch pan underneath it. It was dripping oil constantly. Trying to get them at the same height. I think that's part of the wiper disintegrating. So my first challenge is going to be unscrewing the gland nut. This giant collar here needs to be unscrewed. And I don't think I have a wrench that's going to do it. It's the biggest wrench I have. Man, it's close. Close, but no cigar. Well, this is probably not worth trying, but I'm going to try anyway. This is an oil filter wrench. And this gland is supposed to be put on with a low-strength thread locker that really doesn't do a whole lot. So it's possible that this thing will move relatively easily. Looks like it moved, but actually the whole thing is twisting. Have to clamp that down too. Ripping the paint off. on bending my wrench. All right, enough of that. Heat. And we'll give this one more go. Maybe. Nope. All right, you guys need to check this out. So here we are on the JLG website. Here is the telescope cylinder, the barrel, all the seals, that's the piston. And if you come over here, you can get the entire telescope cylinder assembly. This is the cylinder for my lift. And I've already added this to my cart. How much do you think it costs? Give yourself just a second to think. And let's take a look. $49,929. The manufacturers who are able to make a cylinder that's 26 feet long are somewhat limited, and the machines they have to use to make it are huge. The lift is not worth what this cylinder would cost to replace. If I mess this cylinder up, the lift is done. Okay, what I've got here is an old worn out V-belt. This was used on my sawmill actually. It's one of those belts that has like the cloth covering on it, and I need the rubber exposed, so. And now I need to cut it opposite of the side that I just exposed the rubber. So this is an improvised strap wrench, and these can be effective. Use either a V-belt or a timing belt and get good rubber contact on the part. Put a pipe over it and bend the ends over. That prevents the belt from pulling back out of the pipe, and it puts some pretty good torque on the part. I need a chain wrench, and I do not have one. A chain wrench is similar but uses a chain instead of a belt. That would probably work here. Man, putting some torque on it, but it won't move. Well, this is annoying. Why didn't they put, most cylinders on the gland nut, they have a couple holes that you can put a spanner wrench across and actually get some leverage on it. But there's nothing on this thing, and it's not very thick. I don't want to drill any holes in it. I don't want to modify anything on this machine given what it does. I decided to try to improve my improvised strap wrench. So I was able to put more torque on it with this setup. You can see the jack is there on the left, supporting that side of the cylinder. Come on, baby. But even with that support, I still end up turning it. I'm turning the whole thing. Well, okay. So I put a bar clamp on this square part so that I could counter some more of that torque. Wasn't expecting this to be this hard. I tried a bit more until... Yeah. At this point I called around to several stores looking for a chain wrench. Yep. Of course it's Saturday afternoon. Most of the stores are closed, and the few that were open didn't have any. Alright, I was trying to avoid the old chisel method, but it shouldn't hurt anything. This is made out of steel, it's not aluminum. Just taking the metal off of it, it's not moving. Grief. And we have movement. moving. It's a lot of work for a quarter turn. It'll fight me the whole way, I think. Well, that was easy. All right, that chain is around the steel column that's bolted to the floor underneath my belt grinder. And we're ready to pull that thing out of there. I didn't even spill any oil yet. Okay, apparently I did. Just going to keep the rod centered and take it nice and slow. I don't want any scratches. I don't want to use my new winch setup for this because it would be hard for me to know for sure how much force and to keep track of everything. This is something I think slow and steady and by hand is going to be better for me. So you can see the rod is going down relative to the barrel, so I need to pick it up more or let the barrel down a little bit. One or the other. So I just realized I am creating a vacuum of air inside the barrel beyond the piston. And I should be able to release it with one of these. These are the connections for the holding valve controls. And that one is. So that's letting my vacuum out. Don't even need to come along anymore. All right, we are out and we are making a mess because that's what we do. We are looking down the barrel and it's kind of hard to show you, but there's nothing to see in here. Everything's mirror finish. There's some puddles of oil on the bottom. That's what you want a barrel to look like, so no problems there. Come over here and something to note here is all the oil flows through this rod, which is 20 some feet long. And they had to drill through this thing lengthwise 3 times. There's a port there on this side of the piston, so that's for retraction. That's to pull it back in. There's another one on the opposite side. And then the lift port is bigger. It's right down the center, right there. The machines that could drill a hole down through the center of that, wow, that's impressive. Now I gotta get this nut off of here. See one set screw there. Now I wonder, can I just zip that nut off of there? That would be nice. Oh, that could be a problem. Let me see what else I have. Well, wouldn't you know it, that thing's 2 1/4. The biggest one I have is 2-inch. No! This is 2 3/8, but it's an 8-point socket. Won't go on. That is so close. Well, in typical Farmcraft fashion, it is Saturday afternoon. None of the auto parts stores have a 2 1/4 inch socket. The biggest thing I have is, well, I've got big axle nut sockets, but they're too big for this. Gives me an idea. But I've got a 2-inch socket, and I have a 2 3/8, but it's an 8-point. It's not a 6-point, so it won't go on there. Basically, I'm not going to be able to buy one of these until Monday, and I'm not waiting until Monday. I want to get this thing rebuilt and back in the barrel as soon as possible. I don't want to leave it out here where a rainstorm can get it all wet or something stupid like that. So we're going to fight with it, because that's what we do. First thought, I mean, obviously I can get a crescent wrench on there, but it's going to want to turn. So I'm going to have to anchor the other end, but anchoring it so that it doesn't turn is going to be tricky. Let's try that first. If that doesn't work, I think I'm going to be welding up some sort of socket that I can use my impact and try to take that off. So loosening down there, I'm going to be twisting that way. So I need to brace the rod in the other direction. So I've got one of my bark pipe clamps on there, and it comes over and it's strapped to the door, which of course can't go up. So that pipe can't go up, and therefore, assuming it stays on there, the rod can't twist. But the rod's 20 feet long. It's going to twist some. I don't know. This is really something I would rather use an impact on, but let's see what this does. Maybe we'll get lucky and that set screw was the primary thing keeping it in place and it's not that tight. Oh, good grief. I need better support under it so that I can really torque on it. Yeah, clamp came right off. See if I can come up with something better to hold that end. I actually felt like I could put some real torque on that. Okay, here's my rigged setup. That is static rope. It's anchored to the building over there. And then they come along, so they're hooked to here and preventing this thing from twisting. So that goes to come along and then it's chained to the bottom of that post. Now, I wouldn't want to pull on these anchors like that with a car, but the only thing generating force on this is me. So I don't think I'm going to be pulling that post over. So let's see. Static rope is just flexing. Need something better there. I replaced the static rope with a chain. Actually seems like I can put some force on it. Go get a long bar and see what we can do here. Sketchy. Ah. Every step of the way. pop loose. What happened there? Look at that. I was about to give up. Not give up, but go to a different idea. Now here's the question. Do these things come off easily? Yeah, those just come off like that. So this guy came off like that. Look at all those seals. You gotta be in heaven. I know I am. Huh. Yeah, I think these are put together kind of as a unit in the seal kit. Whole stack of seals. All right, these aren't coming off that way because that's a shoulder there. I've got to get the piston. I was sure that was going to be a fight. All right, thank you, lift. I'll take it. You didn't fight me on one thing. Oh, that's another split ring. Okay, so 2 split rings. They appear to be identical. And then our lovely O-ring. Will this thing just slide off of there? It'd be nice if it would. Look at that. So this is just a spacer. This is going to hit when you extend the rod and prevent it from extending any further. You wouldn't want to forget this because if the telescope cylinder extends too far, then you can imagine what's going to happen to that 3-section boom. You're not going to have enough overlap. That set screw right there, it goes into this right here, and that is what keeps this in the proper position because these holes need to line up with the holes in the rod. All right, we are ready to take the gland off. You know it's a big cylinder when you have to actually get up and walk over there. Yeah, and that is why this job had to happen. Wow, that's really torn up in there. Can you see that? Not just the wiper. There's some issues with that seal there. It looks no bueno. I think I'm gonna be working after dark. I would really like to get this thing rebuilt and back in the barrel. Oh, I see. Yeah, it goes that way. Okay. That's the outside. Look at that. That's what we came after. That's crazy. That's supposed to be a one-piece seal. Yeah, that's it. Wow. I was thinking I was missing a part, but this thing was in 3 pieces. That's amazing. That thing was still working fairly well. It was just leaking and sagging. Yeah, I had a bunch of people telling me if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And, you know, I get the sentiment, but this needed to happen.
This next piece is a wear band. These can withstand the sideways forces and prevent metal-to-metal contact, and also prevent the seal from taking all the sideways force.
Alright, and then this guy on the outside.
I cleaned it up and then gave it a light coat of fresh hydraulic oil.
It rolled a little bit, but then it unrolled. Thank you. Now this seal. This is the seal that was leaking. This is the main thing that I'm doing this teardown for. We getting that in there is going to be a trick. So when you evert it, I guess it is a two-piece seal. It starts to come apart. I wonder if I could put that in and then put that in.
Answer: nope.
We're going to put that in some hot oil to help me out. Alright, a little hot oil there. Vice grips with Gorilla Tape on them so I don't tear up the seal. Don't want to hurt the seal. Yeah, I really need to buy that tool that helps you do this. I guess I work on hydraulics often enough. In fact, I've got a couple more cylinders waiting for me already. And grab and evert. Maybe. Alright, I really did a lousy job filming putting that seal in just because I was struggling so much. So I'm going to do this as an example. Let's say this is the seal and this is the bore that I'm trying to put it in. Well, if you just try to put it in, you just can't, especially when this is a really stiff seal. So the way you do it is, they make a tool that does this, and I actually just ordered one because I'm tired of struggling with these things. But I call it everting it, like that. And it turns it into a kidney bean shape, which will easily fit down inside that bore. And then you work these off of there, keeping it down in there. And then at that point you can work it into the groove and pop it into place. You can see how that kidney bean shape will allow that much bigger seal to fit down inside the bore so that you can work it into position. So that's what I was doing. Don't want to smash it too much. Come on, baby. Almost there. Oh, you jerk. Man, it's impossible to do this without really torquing on that seal. Luckily, those seals are tough. She's in and she looks good. And this is the last one. Oh yeah, she's going in there. That is one rebuilt gland. Now we need a rebuilt piston. That's all there is to the piston. Quite a bit easier than the gland. Get on there. Never say it's easier until you've finished doing it. Why didn't that want to go on there? Okay, got that side. I think we're done. Tappy tap tap. So these go, I'm pretty sure they go on the rod support. So that's not actually inside the cylinder. So the only other thing I need to install to put this thing back together are these little guys. So let's go get this thing back together. Gland going back on. Definitely tighter than it was. Listen how quiet it is. Sunset has got to be my favorite time of day, except when I'm running out of daylight. But I do enjoy the evenings. This thing is something else. It wants to roll. It wants to do anything but go on in the right way. Like that. Okay, and one more split ring.
I'm going to clean everything up with brake cleaner, because this, they want Loctite medium strength, the blue stuff. Officially running out of daylight, but I'm going to keep working. Putting it together the same way I took it apart, just in reverse. And because I know I'm going to have trouble torquing this thing to a crazy torque spec, and there's no way to really, like, sometimes you, I forget what you call it, but you mess up the threads behind the nut so that it can't back off. You can't do that on this. So I'm glad to have all this Loctite on here, and this set screw that will also be Loctited, because I don't want it coming out. Oh yeah. Tighten that just a little. That's it. That is pretty darn tight. Let me see, I'm 2.5 feet, and I was pushing most of my body weight, at least 150 pounds at 2.5 feet. So, and now we're going to put a set screw in it with Loctite. What do you think? I think that's not going anywhere. All right, guys, I'm tired. It's dark. I want you guys to put this in the barrel. I'm going to go have dinner. No? I figured. This transmission jack sure comes in handy. It's nice to have a jack that you can move on a dolly, essentially, in any direction. I'm going to go the other end and give that a shove. Just kicking it, barely hitting it hard enough to do anything. Is the whole thing moving? I think it is. Well, dadgummit. I go too crazy with it, so I'm just giving it love taps with a soft mallet. A little bit, not much.
The idea here was to twist and push at the same time. I'm pushing with my knee, and this helped a little bit, but not much.
All right, I gotta figure out a way to come along this thing. This is killing me. Here's my setup. I've got a strap over the wheel, and then to webbing, and then to my come along, which will only be over the barrel. I don't want anything metal over the chrome of the rod scratching it up. So from here on, it's just rope.
By the way, these two caps are loose so that it can let air pressure out. You can see the oil has been dripping out of them underneath.
So now I ought to be able to just crank the come along and pull that sucker in. Tell you what, you crank the come along and I'll hit. Well, it looks like it's going to fight every step of the way. Well, I guess not every step, but it's going to fight now. Slowly but slowly. This old man's getting tired. We are almost there though. Wasn't that special? I think that's it. And of course she's peeing for me. All right, I'm calling it a day. Woo! Yeah, it's the next day, obviously. Still need to put this retainer back on, and I'm gonna put it on the same way I took it off. First, I'm gonna clean up these threads. And this cylinder is fully retracted, so this rod never contacts the seals. So this calls for Loctite 222. This is a low strength Loctite. Obviously, I do not want this thing coming unscrewed after I put the cylinder back in. So it's important, but I don't want to use medium strength Loctite because that's going to hold it too hard and I'll never be able to get it apart again, or at least I'll certainly have to fight. So I'm going to use what they say to use. Tore it up a little bit, but it's actually not too bad. I've seen a whole lot worse than that get reused. Well, I made quite a mess of oil. This is just sawdust from the wood shop. Now, can you guess what I'm going to do with this oil-soaked sawdust? I'll give you a hint. Yeah, you can still see where all the oil was, but it's not like walking around on an oil slick anymore. So, it works. So did you figure out what we're doing with it yet? That's my wood boiler. It's heating my house. So this weather, it's getting down probably into the 40s at night, the 60s in the day, maybe some in the 30s. That'll last a couple of days, and then I'll load it up again.
This is more degreaser going into a backpack sprayer. It doesn't need to be a backpack sprayer. This is just the only sprayer I have that's able to reach halfway down the inside of the boom. And I degreased and power washed each boom section, inside and out, twice. Yeah, that took a while.
Look how clean it looks in there. It's not perfect, but man, way better than it was.
I've gone all up and down the booms, looking at all the welds, and I'm happy to say they all look absolutely perfect. And some of you might be disappointed that I'm not going to do a full paint job, but honestly, I think it's a waste of time and money. This thing, especially these booms, they are stored inside the machine. Obviously, somebody had them sitting for a long period of time outside, but I don't plan on doing that. But the paint that's there is protecting it anyway, so there's just no need for me to go through all that trouble. That's not going anywhere. No, but seriously, that cylinder is so expensive. If that thing slid off of there and bent, that would ruin the entire lift. So I'm strapping it down.
Don't worry, I came out later, tugged on the strap, and said, that's not going anywhere. If I hadn't, we all know what would have happened.
Well, I'm kind of bummed about this. This is the rod support bracket, and this is one of the first things that I took off after removing the cylinder from the machine. This goes around the rod, and I took it apart, no big deal. Had a couple of split rings on it, and yeah, comes right apart. The problem is, JLG didn't split those rings, somebody else did. I mean, they were clearly cut. That was not like they broke or anything, but the new rings are not split. They're solid.
So the only way to get those on there is to take the cylinder back apart and slide this up the rod. So I guess we're doing that. Not. I mean, this is outside of the cylinder. These are just wipers. And these blocks here hold them very well in position. I'm just splitting the new ones. I'm going to do the same thing that other guy did. Darn it.
And there's your answer.
Obviously you can see I put a coat of paint on that. I just didn't want to leave it bare metal after all the heat I put on it. And you may have noticed that this looks all wet. I fluid filmed it just to keep it from rusting anymore. So that's ready to go put back on the machine. How about that?
What's the tractor doing there? Yeah, I'm getting geared up to slide this fly boom back inside the mid boom. But this video's got long enough, so you guys are gonna have to wait till next week. Rebuilding that cylinder was quite a job, but I actually enjoyed it. And I have to say, I kind of regret that I didn't try to rebuild the main lift cylinder when that needed done. I honestly think I would have done similar things, just do it down on the concrete with moving dollies. And I think it probably might have been easier, maybe? I don't know. But kind of wish I had taken a crack at it. Certainly, once I got it apart, I would have needed to have that rod fixed, and I don't have a lathe big enough to do it, and that's not something I would have tried. There's no way to do a good enough job that I would be comfortable with it with the tools that I have. But anyway, we are making progress, good progress, and I hope next video is going to be me putting this all back together. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.